one morning, I went to a friend's house, and we were all sitting on the lawn just chatting, and I saw a bee. There was a beehive in the window, and I went over to check it and make sure there was no bees in there. Thankfully, there wasn't. Seeing that hive reminded me of a story about when I was 11 years old. I remember my dad was searching for a house. My dad ended up finding a house that needed a little renovation for about $35,000. It took about 3 weeks to fix it up, though. I remember one summer I was outside playing, and something kept bothering me. I noticed that around the gutter, it was lined with bees, and there were so many bees flying around the gutter. So I decided to go check out around the house to make sure it wasn't all the way around the exterior. So I ran into my room and got long pants, gloves, and a hat to make sure everything in my body was covered. And I went out and found my dad and told him that I noticed something interesting. Whenever my dad looked up, he saw all of the bees. He was not super happy with the fact that the house was now infested with bees. Then we went up and checked the attic to see if we could find the source of where the bees were coming from.
The entrance to our attic was basically
The entrance of our attic was a sliding panel on the ceiling, and so when my dad moved the panel over, he could hear how loud the bees were coming from up there in the attic. So my dad closed it up. My dad and I decided that on Monday we should call an exterminator to come and deal with all of the bees.
I was so excited to see the exterminators.
The exterminator brought in poison. He had a white bee suit, and the poison was in a canister and came out as gas. I thought that was very interesting. I wasn't allowed to go upstairs and watch them get rid of the bees, though. So I decided to go outside and watch, and as I was sitting outside, you could see all the bees swarming to get out of the attic as the gas was being sprayed into it.
Wow.
After all the bees had left the attic, I went back inside, and the beekeeper told me about different bee cultures. He told me about the differences between bees, wasps, and hornets. He told me the differences on their homes and also in how smart they are. It was really interesting to learn how different all three of those different insects were.
After he left, I really wanted to.
The next morning, I asked my dad if I could go upstairs and check the attic, but he wanted to make sure it was safe first. So he lifted off the panel and listened and didn't hear any buzz, so I was allowed to check the attic out.
So the two of us.
This time I didn't have to put any protective clothes on. Looking around the attic, there was no bees all around the hive, around the edges, but there were holes everywhere from the hives. There was also 2 large hives in the middle of the attic. It was really interesting to see how the hives were built like small cities. We decided we needed to clean up the attic, so we took a hammer to the wall. As we hit the hives would fall to the ground like ash. At first I was a little worried that a bee would come out and sting me, but then I realized there were no bees there, and I hacked away at the walls with a hammer. The 2 large hives in the middle, though, we took to my school, so my science class could look at them. We were able to get everything cleaned up out of the attic. My dad decided that he needed to buy new wood paneling in order to build up the walls of the attic. We also closed off all the holes on the outside of how the bees were originally getting into the attic. We also lined the outside of the house with new wood to prevent the bees from coming in future years. Looking back on that experience, it was just really interesting to learn from.